Hello and welcome to another thrilling episode of Dandy's Driveway. I'm Neil Smith, the Dandy DJ from Murfreesboro, Tennessee, the geographical center of the state, and today I am going to be changing a rear brake rotor and pads on a 2013 Dodge Grand Caravan. Now this one's a little bit unique because it has 17-inch wheels and a 13-inch rotor, which is a little odd. So if you're out looking for your part on Amazon and all you put in is 2013 Dodge Grand Caravan, it's probably going to pull up the wrong thing, as it did with me. I took a look at it and something went off and said, this isn't quite right. And that's because this has a, I forget what it's called, but it's a special size wheel and brake package on this with a little bit of heavier duty brakes with 13-inch rotors and dual piston high performance calipers in the front. So I had to figure out the right thing to buy and get that in order to be able to dig into this. And to help you prevent sort of all the work I had to do to find the right thing, I'm going to put a link in the comments down below of the package that I bought for this van. And I'll show it to you right now. Come on. And here is the package that I bought. It's from Detroit Axle. And with the 13-inch rotors, they're bigger than what normally comes. And as you over here is the front rotors, and as you can see, it's a double rotor. You know, it's slotted there, or vented, should I say, to help dispel more heat. Now that's the front. We're not going to be doing that today. And as you can see, the pads are much larger than the rear pads, and as you can see, these are the rears. It's only single and a much smaller shoe, and that's because the rear brakes are just kind of helpers. The fronts are the ones that do all the real heavy work and need all the stopping power, which is why there's two pistons in the front to help it more. And this package I bought was only $150 to get a complete brake set, and it also came with some brake fluid, which I'm not going to need today, but also a can of brake and parts cleaner, which I actually will use today. All right, let's dig into this wheel. And the very first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take the cap off of the master cylinder right there. That way when I compress the brake cylinder here in just a bit, the fluid will have some room somewhere to go. And you know, you've got to, that way, because if the cap's on there, you can't compress the cylinder because of the pressure inside. And I'm going to cover it lightly with a little napkin because it is autumn and leaves are starting to fall. That's kind of why they call it fall. And the next thing we need to do, for safety's sake, is chock the front wheel of the van. Just get a couple of these wheel chocks. You can get them at Tractor Supply or whatever. They're about $5 or $10 for the pair. It's not very much. Safety first always. Make sure this thing doesn't roll on you while you got it jacked up. And to get this thing up in the air, we're going to be using a 3-ton floor jack and a couple of 3-ton jack stands, along with some of these little rubber ends on there to go up on the little railing that you have to hold it up there. And I'm going to be using 2 jack stands because in addition to this, because I like belt and suspenders when it comes to safety. And right there is that railing that you jack it up on, and right here is the you see how it's kind of doubled there? That's the extra support you need. But as you can see, even though it's doubled there, it still gets bent over time and munched up and whatever. And I've had 3 of these vans, and I got to tell you, I haven't found a way around that. It's just the way it is. But you just put the jack right in that part right there. Right there. I'll see if I can get my hand in there. Right there. And jack it up, and that's about all you can do. Just start getting your jack. Start pumping up your jack. Move it into place. And you just kind of feel with your hand till it's in place. Actually, or use the camera on your phone like I'm doing right now. You can see it could come over a little bit. Make sure it's not hitting this plastic stuff right there, and that looks pretty good. There we go. And we have made contact with the rail. And now it's time to get jacked up. But we're not going to get the wheel all the way off the ground. We just want to take some pressure off of it first, because we got to get those lugs, and we don't want the tire spinning while we're knocking our lugs loose. And for that, well, with the little flimsy wimpy scissor jack stand that these vans come with, it comes with this thing right here, which is the perfect size for the lugs. And so we're just going to start cracking them loose here. And what I'll generally do is, now that the pressure's off the tire, but it's still touching the ground, I'll just come around and just get each one of them knocked loose. Then I'll come back and I will take them off completely. Or sometimes, you know, first couple I might just go ahead and just get them all the way out. And by the way, sometimes lugs will get stuck in here, so my little trick is to, when I'm almost at the end here, I'll make sure that this thing can come off, then I'll put it back loosely and finish taking it and get the rest by hand. There you go. And just set your lugs aside someplace where you won't lose track of them, and do all 5 of them just like that. Now I've got all the lugs off of this, except I left 2 on there very, very loosely, just finger loose. And the reason I did that is I'm going to jack this up more until this wheel comes completely off the ground. Then I'm going to put my jack stands under there on that railing, and then I'm going to pull the wheel off and then lower it down to the jack stands and still leave my floor jack in place as well. That way I have three different things holding it up, because my head's going to be under there, and I don't need any more knocks on it. I mean, look what it's already done to me. And just keep on jacking until that thing flies up in the air. Okay, it's up in the air. Give it a couple more, because I want to be able to extend these jack stands really good. Alright, probably don't want to go any more than that. Now I'll slide under. I will get these jack stands up on the rail and then lower it back down. Now I don't want to linger here too long, because I do not like the feeling of that thing just hanging out up there like that, with only one thing supporting it. Now this jack stand is great and all, but you know, if it goes, you know, it could shoot back at me and roll back and hit me or whatever and hurt me, or, you know, the tires on there kind of wonky, so all kinds of bad things that could happen in this instance. Okay, my jack stands are in place. I'm going to gently lower this back down a little bit. All right, tire's still up off the ground, as you can see. Gonna take out these lugs, yank the wheel off. And off comes the wheel. By the way, the rotors on these are what they call free floating rotors, which means they're just held in place by the pressure of the wheel being lug nutted on and nothing else. But they do kind of get rusted into place, and I don't know if this is going to be a problem to get off or not. But if we have to, we're going to sit there and beat on it with our trusty rubber mallet and spray some lubricant back behind it and do whatever we got to do to get this thing to come off. And I don't know if it'll be tough or not, but we're going to find out together. Okay, now that you got the wheel off and everything secured in place, you got to pull out the caliper pin so you can free up the caliper and get it out of the way. So we use this one. It takes a 13 millimeter wrench. I'm gonna put it on here, and remember, righty-tighty, lefty-loosey is actually reverse when the pin's coming at you. So when the pin's coming the opposite way, you have to switch that up. So it's righty-loosey, lefty-tighty, if that makes any sense. And we'll just kind of be gentle, don't get crazy on it. Tap gently with a hammer if you have to. Okay, that one's loose. Go ahead and just take those pins off, the bolt off there, right there. Just set it aside, and then do the same. There's another one down here at the bottom. And take that off. The other one, and then the caliper should just lift up, and you can just kind of rest it here for right now. But since we're going to be taking this rotor off, we're going to actually hang it with a coat hanger. And now you should just be able to pull the brake shoes right out. Now these were kind of tight. Well, they were tight, not that tight anymore. Anyway, that one just came out, and this one, yeah, this one's being a little stubborn. So sometimes you can just kind of come in here with something to kind of knock it out with. All right, well, I finally got that brake shoe off. Now I am going to take this is the brake caliper, and I'm going to wire this up and stick it out of the way. And you want to put your wire through a hole. You don't want to just like put it there over these hooks and let them hang like that, because my experience is it will find if it can find a way to wiggle off, it's going to. So here's what I ended up doing. I ended up taking the wire and just kind of putting it around the top of the shock absorber over there. All you really want to do is get it suspended and up off of here without adding any undue pressure to it. Let's get the caliper mount off there, and for that we're going to need an 18mm wrench. This thing right here, this mount, it'll have 2 bolts on the back. Just look for them, you'll find them. There's the only 2 bolts that are attached to it. And get your 18mm wrench on there, and you're probably going to have to use a little friendly hammer persuasion. Just get it nice and tight, and just this one's coming. That one is knocked loose. I'll work on the other one, which is down towards the bottom here. Ooh, there's a little plate making it a little tough to get to. Oh, not if you hang it straight down. Okay, here we go. And I'll just come underneath, and that one's loose. And we got our bolts out, and off comes the mounting bracket. And we're going to take this on over to our work surface, and we're going to pull off these old anti-rattle clips and put new ones on, and get it all cleaned up in there and lube it up and make sure the brake shoes, flow real nicely around in them before we go put it back on. And we're also going to lube up these caliper pins as well and all that good stuff. But before we do that, it's the moment of truth. We're going to try and get this rotor off, and it certainly not coming off by hand. So, okay, you get to hopefully. Well, that's no fun. All right, well, we're going to be spraying some lube up in here and back behind there and let it sit for a bit while we work on our other stuff, and then we'll come back to this. And I happen to be a very big fan of P-Blaster. Well, I think it's just called Blaster here, and what I'm going to do, I'm going to shoot it right into these holes right here around the lugs. And right around here, see, penetrating oil. And then I'm going to come in behind it, see if I can get it where it meets up on the wheel hub. And while that penetrating oil is working its way in, I've got some work over here to do, and I'm going to get off the anti-rattle clips. There's 4 of them, 1 on each part here. You usually just pull them right off, otherwise just use some help with a screwdriver. I would often just clean these things up and reuse them, but I've got brand new ones over there, so I'll just put these in the case, save them for later in case they're needed. Those 4 clips are out of here. What I'm also going to do is I'm going to pull the caliper pins out, clean those up, re-lube them, clean all that up inside the little place where they go, and get all that put back together as well. And here's the pin right here, and the boots just pull right off too. I'm going to pull the boots off. I'm going to clean the grease off of these things, and re-lube them with some of my good brake caliper grease right there. Take a good rag that doesn't have a bunch of debris on it and just kind of wipe them off. check them for wear. That looks pretty good. Set that one aside. Clean off the other one here. Don't see anything that can really bothers me there. You know, looking for deep like gouges and grooves. Make sure it hasn't been riding around. I want to kind of run my rag through the middle of these boots. They're not ripped. Get it right through there, and just for good measure, I'm also gonna get down in here. Make sure there's no debris on there. I use a small screwdriver and just kind of tuck it down in there. Make sure not to gouge the walls of anything. Just kind of clean it up a little bit and do the same on the other side. I'm gonna come back with my caliper grease here. Black goop. Good silicone caliper grease. Grease that pin up. Nice and good. All over the place. Rodeo girls around the outside. Also going to do the same inside the boot. Get a good amount of grease in there. Put that in. See, it's got a lot of goopy grease in there, and that's okay. Don't worry about it. Sure that's it's liking that. It's on there nice. And we can go ahead and just stick that right on back in. And make sure it's flowing really nice. The pins are back in place. Before I put the anti-rattle clips back in place, what I'm going to do is I'm going to clean these up with a file here. Real good, and get those nice and clean. That's not where the brakes ride. They're riding the clips, so you know, just kind of get these nice and clean in these grooves where the clips go and where the ends of the shoe ultimately will ride. And then we'll put the clips in, then we'll lube it all up and put the shoes in and make sure that it flows and moves in and out real nicely before we go trying to stick this back on. And now that I've cleaned up little grooves that the brake shoes ride in real good with my file, I'm just gonna clean them out real good with this rag. And I think I'm gonna break out some of my parts cleaner here from Detroit Axle and spray it on there and give that another good little clean there. Let's let that dry. In the meantime, I'm going to come up here and I'm going to maybe clean up the ends of these brake shoes. They are brand new, but I'm still going to clean up the ends right here and then lube them up and put the anti-rattle clips in and see how it's going. And these anti-rattle clips are pretty darn cool because you see that little spring there and a little lip? The end of the brake shoe rides between that little tail on there and the end of this spring over here. And what that little thing does is after it squeezes in on the brake rotor to stop your car, that little lip and spring will pull the brake shoe, or at least it's supposed to, pull it back off the rotor so it's not sitting there riding on it and building up heat. And to put these in, they really can only go one way. You'll see that there's kind of an L there. Got them in. There are certain ones for the right and left. You got to make sure that these little bumps right here are on the outside. So there are insides and outsides. All right, so got my brake shoes to fit in there properly. I did have to do some filing because it was, you know, a little tight right in there. So on the insides of both the shoes like that, and they fit real good. So now I'm just going to grease up right in here on these anti-rattle clips, give them a nice coating, and I'm going to do that for all four. Stick my shoes in, and then go over and see if I can wrestle that rotor off. The lube's been sitting on here for a while. Let's see if we can knock this thing loose. That's going to take a while. Got it. Had to go a little mad dog on it, but finally got it. But look at all that rust in there, and that's what the problem was. It just rusted right onto there. So I'm going to get in here with my wire brush and clean this all up, get as much of this rust off here as I can, get the cleaner in there, and I don't need to film all that. And then we'll come back, we'll put the new rotor on and get these shoes and everything cinched back up and go for a test ride. Okay, so I got this all cleaned up. First I hit it with my brake parts cleaner, and after that I hit it with some pea blaster. And the reason I did that was because the brake parts cleaner, it dissipates real fast and gets dry. It's just to blast stuff off. I came back and hit it with this to give me a nice lubrication base so I can come in with my wire brush. And so I cleaned all this up real good with my wire brush, and then came in with my smaller wire brush, which is used to clean battery terminals, and got in around all the little places here. So, and once I was done with all that, and I came back with my rag and kind of cleaned it off. Now there's still like a good little layer, and I got around this hub too, and it's still a good little layer of lubricant on there, and that's okay, because when I put the new rotor on, the idea is I would like there to be a little residual layer of lubricant on there for the next time that I have to come back and do this job, so I don't have to sit there and beat my brains out with a hammer trying to get the dang thing out. All right, so here's the new rotor. Just throw it right on there and assemble it all back just the way it came off. Here we go. And to help kind of hold that in place, you can always just kind of put a lug on there to get it to stay nice and straight up and down. For the most part. Yeah, see, it just holds it on there nice and straight while you do the rest of your work. All right, so we've got our rotor. It's held in place with these two lugs temporarily. And next thing we need to do is unhitch this caliper from here and then compress the cylinder. So we will come in here, get that from around the shock absorber, and get our coat hanger out of here, because the last thing we need to do is start driving down the road and then realize we got a coat hanger all stuck under there and it's all grinding on stuff. So get that over there, and we can just kind of rest that right here. And we got a little doohickey which helps us with this, and it is this tool right here. And this is made for the kind of pistons which have these little notches. You have to turn them to compress it in. So just kind of fish around on this little cube. Kind of looks like the thing from the movie Hellraiser, till you find the notches that fit in there most securely, and then you just come in here and you compress the cylinder down. Turn it and press in till that piston is all the way down. And don't worry, the little rubber boot around it's going to look all scrunched up and stuff. That's normal. I don't think it can go in any further than that. Okay. All right, and you want your caliper pins. Make sure they're moving in and out nice and freely. And they are. Those to the back. This obviously dresses over the rotor. You can lift up that like there. This is going to go on the inside of the little mounting brackets there. This is the top one. I noticed the bottom one had a little plate attached to it. I'll show you that in a second, and I haven't encountered that before. I don't really know what that little plate's for, but as long as it goes back on what it came off of, I'm figuring we should be all right. And the other bolt has this weird little plate on it. I don't know what's up with that, but I'm going to stick it back on just like it came off and go with it. And both of those bolts are in. I'll take my 18mm wrench and get it on those two big old bolts back there. And once I've got them nice and tight the way till I can't move them anymore by hand, I'm going to give them a couple whacks with the hammer. We're just going to whack it with the hammer till it just stops moving. We were ready to put these brake shoes in the slots and then fit this caliper back down where it came off of. And I'll do my best to film this where I can let you guys see it. But basically, it's pretty self-explanatory where they go. Just make sure to get them between this outer bump and the little inner lip in the guide thingy. And you might have to wrestle with it a little bit. And I shaved them down to where they should fit real nicely. and the top one is in, bottom one is in. Okay, now we're going to do the one in the back. Same thing, and it's going to be real tough to film, but you get the idea. I'm going to have to crawl up and under there and hem and haw and wrestle with it, and that's just what you're going to have to do until you get it in right. And just kind of make sure it's, you know, flowing back and forth real nicely, and it's not on the other side of that back lip, because you want that back lip to kind of help pull the brake back off the rotor when it's not engaged. That way you have less wear, less heat, and all that stuff. So I'm going to go do the back one, and we'll come back and we'll fit the caliper on. Okay, my brake shoes are in place. I'm not going to lie to you. You can't really see what you're doing very well when you're in the back of that and you're laying, it's all dark and you're laying on your back looking up. You can't see everything, so you got to do it by feel. So that took me a few minutes, and it sucked, and that's just that's just the way it is. But you know what sucks worse? Paying a mechanic. That's what sucks worse. All right, so now this goes on back over, and as long as the caliper fits over those brake shoes nicely, and then you are home free. All right, and it does fit over there real nice, no fuss, no muss. Let's put back our bolts in here, our 13mm bolts, and they go back here and into the caliper pins. And I'm not going to make you watch me do all that. I just kind of get them in there by hand, like you do with most things. That's in there by hand. I'll get the other one in by hand. We'll cinch them down. We'll cinch them down, wrench them down, and come right back. And wait, with these are a little more sensitive, because those pins, they definitely are more sensitive, and you do not want to bend up those pins. So these, well, you know, you want to make sure they're nice and tight, and you might even give them a little tap with the hammer, but not like you did with the big heavy-duty mounting bracket. I mean, that you can pound on that a bit and make sure that thing's good, because those are great big bolts. But these are much smaller bolts, so you want to be a lot more careful with them. Yeah, just get them nice and snug. You can bounce a hammer on them just a little bit, but other than that, I have screwed these up before and had to have a tow truck come and take me into a shop where I ended up paying a lot of money to not have the job done right, and the fools left the dust boots off the caliper pins, and the shop wouldn't make good on it. Well, they told me if I went and bought new caliper pins or dust boots or whatever, that they would reimburse me that cost. But you know what? When you pay someone to do a job for you, it's not really what you want to hear. Okay, those are on there. I'll bounce my hammer on there for just a second for gits and shiggles. 1, 2, 3, lightly. Just want to make sure they're snug and they're not coming off. Okay, that should be on there properly. We can take these two little placeholder lugs off there. I'm gonna throw this tire back on there and we'll take it for a test spin. I like to lay on my belly when I do this, because I can just get it under the tire, and there we go. And I'll put this on the way I was shown by some redneck roofers I used to work with back at Walker Roofing in Florida, Jacksonville, Florida. Yeah, I lived there for about 1.5 years when I was young and not fat. I'm going to get these all started by hand. So, hey there, Rick and Chris Cousins. If you're watching this, trying to catch up on me, give you a little shout out. Hit this on here, and just until they touch, you want to go around in a star pattern, like tuning a drum. This is basically exactly what you're doing. Push that wheel in a bit. Just give each one a few turns, round and around the star. I take my time with this because I want it done right. If I wanted it done wrong, I'd take it to a cheap mechanic. Can't get cheaper than me though. But that's okay. If I do it wrong, that's okay. If you do it wrong and I paid you to do it wrong, we got a problem. Okay, so all these are just snug. Next thing I want to do, pull out my jack stands. There's probably weight on them, so I can't really do that. I got to jack it up a little more to get my jack stands out. I don't know if you can see this. If I'm off camera, just jacking up the car a little bit more. My jack stands, I'm pulling them out from under the car. And I want to lower this until that wheel just touches the ground so the wheel won't turn while I finish tightening the lugs. See it touching the ground there? All right. Now I'll finish tightening these up all the way. Once again, drum pattern, star pattern, just crisscross pattern all the way until they won't go anymore, no matter how hard I push on them. And once I can go all the way around, put all my body weight and these lugs just don't move, that's when I know it's good. Now I've got a little more body weight than a lot of people, so if you're a very lightweight person, you know, you might want to take that advice with a little grain of salt there. Thing is, when you're out in the middle of nowhere and you got to change a tire, you want to be able to get these lugs off in a high pressure situation. So I do not like them to be air gunned on so tight that I can never get them off, but I do want them secure and safe, of course. All right, I think we're good there and ready to lower this thing down, put the lid back on the master cylinder for the brakes, and go take it for a test drive. Gentle, gentle, gentle. Come back up here. Put the lid back on the master cylinder. Make sure it's on there good. Drop the hood. And don't forget to take the wheel chocks out. You're not going to get very far if you don't. Now let's go pump up these brakes. Okay. And go down here. And at first it's going to go all the way to the floor. That's okay. We got our lid back on our master cylinder. We're just pumping back up that brake piston until it's tight. Shouldn't take long. Got new shoes and a new rotor. All right. I think we're ready for a nice test drive. I like to start out nice and easy. Just going to do a couple brakes here in the stop perfect. I'm just an idle, rolling right along. Now I'm out on the street. Squirrel! And now we are back at the Dandy Ranch after a neighborhood and a highway test drive. And as you can see, well, I don't smell any brake smell, so that's a good sign. And there's no smoke coming off the tire. No smoke and things not being on fire is generally a good sign that you did something okay. And you kind of touch the hub. The hub of the wheel is not hot. So there you go, and I'm going to call that a success. So I'm Neil Smith, the Dandy DJ from Murfreesboro, Tennessee, and you get a chance, check out my book, Bride, Here's How to Ditch Your DJ and all your other wedding vendors too. It's available on Amazon, Audible, iTunes, and Smashwords in ebook, paperback, and audiobook formats. Also, if you are seeking clean content, family-friendly DJ or photo booth services, or I should say, and photo booth services, within a 2-hour radius of Murfreesboro, check me out at dandydj.com, and we'll talk about it. All right, you guys stay dandy. All right, time to put this all up and away, and then I'm going to go get cleaned up and go catch a horror movie before I head to Bible study. What do you do with the old rotor after you've got it off? Well, what you do is you bring it by O'Reilly Auto Parts store, where if it measures to where there's enough of the rotor left, they'll resurface it for you for right about 10 bucks. You just drop it off and come back later and pick it up. You put it on the shelf at home, and next time you do a brake job, you don't have to buy a new rotor. You just pull the resurfaced one off and slap it on.